Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are strapping in for a look at a very specific and frankly quite savage critique of 2012's Snow White and the Huntsman.
Man.
Swath. Now, you might remember 2012, it was like the year of the Snow White battle, right? You had Mirror Mirror, which was all light and kind of campy.
Right, the comedy version.
Exactly. And then there was Swath. And this one, it was really, really determined to be the, quote, grittier, darker one. It wanted that serious tone.
Yeah, aiming for something, a bit more mature, a more maybe authentic take on the grim story.
That was the idea.
And look, on paper, they seem to have the pieces. All the main bits of the fairy tale were there. But according to the analysis in our source today, that ambition, it got seriously undermined. Two big things, apparently. This internal identity crisis and, well, some pretty controversial casting choices.
Choices that, the critic argues, fundamentally broke the film's whole premise. And we're not going to ease into this one. Let's dive right into maybe the most controversial point the critic makes. The whole Snow White story, the foundation, it rests on you, the audience, accepting that Snow White is the fairest of them all, period.
It's non-negotiable for the plot.
Right. But this film asks us to believe that Kristen Stewart's Snow White is more beautiful than the evil queen, who's played by Charlize Theron, an Oscar winner.
And that's the rub, isn't it? If you're setting up this serious, dark, authentic world,
you need the internal logic to hold up.
Precisely. You need the audience invested. And the queen's motivation, her vanity, her need to be the fairest that drives everything. So if the casting makes you immediately go, wait, what?
Then the whole serious tone kind of collapses.
That's the argument from the source. Why aim for serious drama and then undercut your central conflict visually? It makes the queen's quest seem, well, less compelling.
Yeah, it asks us to believe the magic mirror is maybe just being polite or needs its eyes checked. And this is where the source critic really doesn't pull any punches. So the core issue, the film needs you to buy Snow White as the ultimate beauty, surpassing the queen. And the reviewer just lays it out, asking basically why put the delightful Miss Theron up against Kristen Stewart, using some very strong negative language we won't repeat fully here.
Okay, and we absolutely have to stress this is the critic's highly subjective take. They even admit their intense dislike for Stewart probably, quote, spoiled my enjoyment of the movie more than it should have.
Right. It's important to flag that bias. It's worn very openly there.
Definitely. But stepping back from the harshness of it, the core point raises a valid question about adaptation, right? Does the casting serve the story's needs? If the queen's jealousy feels unbelievable because of who's cast,
then her motivation shifts. It's not this deep, tragic flaw anymore.
It becomes almost petty, like a cinematic misstep rather than character depth.
Good distinction. Okay, but let's move past the leads for a second. The reviewer did say the rest of the cast was actually pretty good.
Yeah, they did give credit there. Our notes mention praise for Chris Hemsworth as the Huntsman. Apparently, he still made the reviewer's partner go weak at the knees, which is a fun detail.
Oh, okay. Hemsworth, charm intact.
Seems so. And crucially, there was a strong supporting cast. Lots of quality British actors, especially playing the dwarfs.
Oh, yeah, the dwarfs. I loved this bit in the source. It mentioned bringing in veterans like Ian McShane, Ray Winstone, Nick Frost.
Big names.
Huge names. And the critic was really surprised to see them played down in trailers. Like the marketing deliberately hid their involvement.
Which is so weird, right? Suggests they wanted to focus solely on the younger leads, maybe.
Maybe. But it shows the depth of talent they actually had on board.
True. But looking at performances overall, the source lands on okay, but like really uneven.
Uneven how?
Well, Charlize Theron. The review says she hams it up so much you could serve her for Sunday dinner.
Wow. Okay, so maybe having a bit too much fun being evil.
Possibly. Seems a bit disconnected from the whole gritty realism vibe they were supposedly going for.
Yeah, that points back to that identity crisis, doesn't it? Are we doing high camp evil or serious fantasy?
Exactly. And adding to the confusion, the source mentions the distraction of increasingly bad accents.
Oh, no.
Hemsworth's Scottish accent apparently took a tour of the British Isles.
Oof.
And others just defaulted to that generic fantasy voice. You know the one?
I do. So it sounds like a bunch of different actors maybe acting in slightly different movies.
That's the impression. And if you tie that all together, the central casting issue, the uneven tones, the wandering accents, it just screams lack of cohesion.
Which leads us right into the film's biggest problem, according to this critique, the identity crisis.
Yep. the structural flaw.
Okay, so we've got shaky foundations visually and audibly, but the source argues those were just symptoms. The real sickness was deeper in the film's DNA. Let's unpack that. The claim is the film just couldn't figure out what it wanted to be. Was it fantasy, a war movie, a love story, a dark fairy tale?
It tried to be a bit of a mix of everything, and the result, in the reviewer's words, was just unfulfilling.
Doesn't sound good.
And this is where the critique of the marketing really bites. Remember the trailers?
Vaguely. Dark, lots of effects.
Exactly. They promised this dark, gothic fantasy world full of, quote, a menagerie of mystical beasts, real magic, real danger.
Okay.
But then you actually watch the film, and apparently it's quite different. Those big fantasy elements, mostly confined to a couple of scenes.
Really? That's it?
Yeah, and half of those were apparently just Snow White's imagination. So heavy on the CGI, but feeling kind of separate from the main, supposedly darker tone.
The classic bait and switch. Promise epic fantasy, deliver something more. Generic action-adventure with sprinkles of magic.
Seems like it. Maybe you worried about alienating people if it got too weird or fantastical.
Could be. And that uncertainty, that lack of commitment, it apparently bled into everything else.
For sure. The review suggests the romance parts were not executed with any passion. So the love triangle, the Huntsman's redemption, it all felt a bit thin.
And the actual fairy tale roots.
Kind of lost in the translation to a young adult audience, is how the source puts it. Like, they sanded off the sharp primal edges of the original Grimm story.
Okay, so trying to appeal to the YA crowd diluted the core elements.
That seems to be the core argument. The reviewer speculates, pretty convincingly I think, that the filmmakers wanted something more mature. They aimed for a grown-up interpretation of this quite dark, spooky original tale.
Why?
But they were afraid of pushing the rating up, losing that crucial teenage audience. So they stayed PG-13.
The commercial compromise.
Exactly. And according to this critique, that compromise is what really killed its potential. They watered down the scary bits, the passionate bits, the magical bits, all to play it safe commercially.
And that lack of full commitment just sucked the energy out of it.
That's the takeaway.
Yes.
Ruined the chance for what could have been a very good grown-up interpretation.
Wow. Okay, so even when it tried to lean into one genre, like the war movie aspect, that compromise was still visible.
Glaringly so, apparently. The reviewer specifically complained about no gore at all.
In a medieval battle.
Yep. And characters would get hit with axes and seem to just, quote, brush off axe wounds like they were being tickled instead.
Oh, dear. That completely undermines any sense of stakes or danger.
Right. You can't sell yourself as the dark, gritty take if your big battles feel consequence-free, like slightly aggressive historical reenactment.
Yeah, like enthusiastic LARPing, as the source hinted. Okay, so the lack of commitment driven by trying to hit that PG-13 sweet spot just neutered the grit it promised.
That seems to be the central thesis. And that lack of real stakes is probably why the final assessment lands where it does.
So is it just a total disaster then?
Not entirely, no. Yeah. Despite all these issues, the casting, the identity crisis, the lack of follow-through, the overall verdict isn't a complete write-off. The source does say the basic story is decent enough. I mean, it's Snow White, a classic tale. And even at 2 hours, apparently it doesn't drag.
Yeah.
The pacing holds up okay.
So it's watchable, just flawed.
That's the vibe. For you, the listener, may be wondering if it's worth tracking down. The review offers a very specific, kind of lukewarm final judgment.
Which is?
The reviewer says they wouldn't put it high on their list. Definitely wouldn't buy the Blu-ray.
Okay, not exactly a ringing endorsement.
Pragmatically, they also say you can see considerably worse films than this.
Faint praise indeed.
So the final word is kind of. If you go to the cinema, your first choice is sold out. Swath is an acceptable backup plan.
Wow, the cinematic equivalent of, well, it's there, the last okay option in the vending machine.
Pretty much. Didn't fail so badly it's unwatchable, but didn't commit enough to anything to be memorable or, good.
Right. So, wrapping this deep dive up, the core lesson from this review seems to be about that tension. You have this ambition, dark, mature fantasy, clashing with commercial caution, fear of losing the teens.
And that clash leads to something, well, unfulfilling. Tried to please everyone, hit too many targets vaguely instead of hitting one target hard.
Yeah.
Which does raise a really interesting question, I think, especially for anyone involved in making things. What's the real cost of that kind of compromise? When art tries to be too many things at once, dark fantasy, war movie, romance, teen flick, does it just inevitably lose its soul, its passion? Does it dilute itself down to just decent enough.
It suggests chasing the widest possible audience can sometimes mean sacrificing the vision that made it interesting in the first place.
Maybe. And that leads us to a final thought for you to chew on.
Hmm.
Think about the challenge studios face today, adapting these classic, often quite dark fairy tales for modern audiences.
Right.
Is it even possible to deliver that truly gritty, mature version they sometimes promise, while still needing to hit broad commercial targets, stay within those PG-13 lines, and not dilute the core story too much?
A tough balancing act.
A very tough one. And the story of Snow White and the Huntsman, at least according to this critique, suggests that maybe the magic mirror doesn't always offer a clear path forward there. Sometimes it reflects a compromise that satisfies no one completely